What's up, everybody? It's your boy Amber from Ember Productions. Today we're back with another commentary video. Now, initially I was going to do another Titanfall 2 episode today, but the recording that I had, one, got corrupted, and two, was just shitty in general, so I decided I'm going to go with another commentary video. Now, this commentary video is actually going over another anime controversy, particularly in the RWBY community, because on Reddit, the moderators of the RWBY subreddit actually banned a bunch of critics for, criticism of the show. Now, while I do plan on making a video on RWBY, like the show itself, this video is going to be more on the fandom and how toxic it has become over the years. I was actually a big fan of the show, but up until when it got to the point of the end of Season 5, I actually kind of fell off, and the show actually kind of fell out of favor for me, mainly because of the tonal change and the direction it started to go. I do plan on doing a episode fully on the show RWBY and how I think it has changed over time, but today is mostly going to be about the fandom. And welcome to Ember's Hot Takes. As I've stated before, my main reason for making this video was a certain controversy that happened on Reddit. Basically speaking, RWBY's fanbase is split into several subreddits. First being r/RWBY, which is where most of the RWBY content is supposed to go, r/RWBY Critics, which is where most criticism goes, and other content such as RWBY OC, where you post original content, and of course the RWBY NSFW for Over the past few years, the main subreddit for RWBY has gotten more and more for fan art and no actual discussion, which is what led to the creation of r/RWBY Critics. While there is something to be said about having your subreddit split into even smaller subreddits since you can't handle the discussion, the moderators of r/RWBY actually started to ban members of the r/RWBY Critics subreddit. By the time of this recording, most of the bans have been lifted, but this still leaves a pretty bad mark on the RWBY fandom. I feel like this controversy actually leads a bit into the first issue of what the RWBY fanbase is dealing with, that being the complete and utter lack of ability to handle criticism. While I do think there's always going to be some people in a fandom that is going to try to avoid discussion and be toxic themselves, I don't think the main subreddit should shy away from discussion. I can understand separating RWBY NSFW from the rest of RWBY, mainly because it's not safe for work content and not everybody is going to want to see not safe for work content. But I do think removing criticism and OC content from the main subreddit is a horrible idea, mainly because it's inspired by RWBY and is trying to improve RWBY. I also do think the mods have a little bit too much power, mainly because they could strike down your post just like they did by banning people for wrongthink. Hell, I posted a fan-made picture for an OC team and immediately got struck down within the hour. While I do think the moderators should be there to, moderate the subreddit, I don't think they should have the same amount of power they do, at least not to be able to just strike down people for adding to a discussion. They should have an actual reason to be able to take down the post instead of just being able to take it down on a whim. This actually leads into my next issue, that being the fandom for RWBY is really sensitive, especially on Twitter. This actually goes back to the time when Volume 7 and Volume 8 were initially in the works, and there was actually a contest for art for Grimm. If you want a bit more context to the actual situation, I would suggest checking out Hirohei on YouTube because he's constantly covering anime controversies, kind of like how Ember's Hot Takes are. But essentially, one submission, which was of a Grimm Wendigo, had caught smoke because someone accused it of first copyright and then later cultural appropriation. While I do think copyright is a serious thing and the woman 100% could have copied it from someone else, I don't think there was any incriminating evidence that showed that she plagiarized from someone else, and personally, I think cultural appropriation is 100% bullshit. For those of you who are unaware of this term, cultural appropriation is essentially someone stealing someone else's culture, usually the culture of minority groups, without being knowledgeable of that culture. The reason I think this is bullshit is because I think you can have different parts of certain cultures without trying to offend someone, even if you don't really know much about that culture. Rooster Teeth is an American company that is literally making a Western anime. I wouldn't think Rooster Teeth would have to know the entire culture of Japan before making a show in Japan's native art style. Unfortunately, RWBY's fandom, especially on Twitter, doesn't share that same sentiment, and the artist was harassed for drawing a picture of a Wendigo Grimm, because apparently it was cultural appropriation of Native American folklore. While this has happened with other fandoms, including the Steven Universe fandom, I really don't think it's justifiable to harass someone just because of what they draw. While there are some more points I would like to make about the RWBY fandom, that would go into the RWBY show, mainly with stuff like writing and the characters, especially with shipping. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know it can get pretty intense. Personally speaking, I'm really hoping that most of the fandom is generally kind-hearted, but it's just toxic people who are being the most vocal and having the most power. I feel confident in saying this because most of the r/RWBY subreddit is actually going against the bans, and obviously it's been overturned by the time of this recording. Hell, even Murder of Birds spoke out against it, and one of the writers of RWBY spoke against it. Personally, for fixes, I think for the fandom, especially on Reddit, just needs more people to moderate it and stop them from, striking down people with differing opinions. And for the general fandom on Twitter, I think the company, Rooster Teeth, should speak out against legitimate toxic fans who are going after people just because they do something. Then again, if you disagree, leave a comment. If you do agree, leave a comment, because I am care for your opinion on this subject. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Ember's Hot Takes. It's been really fun recording. I am interested to see your opinions on this topic. Thank you again for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode, and bye-bye!